What's up, Resonate? Good to see you guys. Man, I'm so excited to be here with you guys. So excited about this moment. Not as excited about this stand, but man, just so excited about this idea of being here and being with you guys. And so it's great to be with you. And I just want to real quick give a shout out to UVI and Central Washington. Excited to have you guys with us on the video as well. Go Vandals, go Wildcats, and of course, go Cougs. So it's exciting to be here and excited to have this opportunity to engage this. And as Chris said, I'm going to be hanging out with you oftentimes in this context for everything else. Chris Roughton is your guy, and Craig is your guy, and Jacob is your guy if you're in different venues. And so just excited about this. We're trying to be a big church and a small church, and it happens while we get as we get bigger, we get smaller as well, and you can connect to your site pastor, and I think it's going to be an exciting year to see what's going to happen here in all of these venues. And so again, just super excited about this. Here's what we're doing. For the next 4 weeks, we're kind of playing off this theme. We're kind of getting into this idea of I think we're calling the friend shift from fake to faithful. And so like what we decided and what we found out as we were planning for this is you got to say this really carefully, right? So you'll get in trouble if you don't say this really carefully. So make sure it's friend shift. So there you go. So making sure that we're nailing that and we're beginning to figure out what this looks like for us. And part of this is because of this reality that the research tells us that you guys, your generation, my generation, is the most connected generation in the history of our country. And that's probably, oftentimes because of social media and mobility and stuff like that. And yet at the same time, statistics tell us that we are the most lonely generation. And so what we do with this kind of tension between this idea of we're connected, but there's a lot of being around each other, and yet at the same time, there's some kind of this expectation that our friendship should be deeper. And I'm really desiring for us to press into this for the next 4 weeks and really talk about what are the shifts that we need to make in order for us to have the depth of relationship that our hearts desire. I know for me, as I have navigated through life and had seasons of friends, there's been these moments where I just wish that I thought that there was going to be a deeper level of friendship, or my expectation for what this friendship was going to look like, it didn't really pan out. And this idea of what I thought this was going to be, and the kind of connection that we would have, and the kind of fun that we would have, and the kind of authenticity that I would have, and just the ability to be myself, it just wasn't there. And trying to figure out why, what's this about? And maybe you've had moments like that, where you thought, man, I thought this was going to be different in terms of the friends I was going to create. I thought this was going to be a different kind of reality for me. Maybe you're coming to college and you thought this is how it's going to be, and so far it's not exactly the way you thought. And if that's you, you're not alone. Here's an infographic that kind of tells us about the kind of want that we have. It says 75%, not Facebook. Let's go to the, not that one. Let's go to it's round, it's a pie chart. There you go. It's 75% of people aren't satisfied with our friendships. And so 3/4 of Americans are not truly satisfied with their friendships. And so maybe that's been you. And the other thing is this, that 63% aren't confident in our friendships. 63%, they're just like, I don't know, I'm not real confident in this relationship. And so I think this is a big deal. I think this is a huge deal because of these things in the current reality that I'm not really satisfied with my friendships. I'm not really confident in my friendships. And as we begin to think about this, as we begin to think about what it would look like, for some of us, we thought that it would be a more significant bond. We thought that our friends would do more for us. And we thought that we would be like, I'll do anything for you. I'll do whatever it takes for you. And so let me ask you a quick question. Raise your hand with me if you would give a ride to a friend. Raise your hand. You would give a ride. Okay, man, that's really good. Okay, raise your hand if you would give a kidney to a friend. Okay, a little less, and you're like, hey, Keith, we kind of went from giving rides to giving kidneys, like body organs. That was kind of a jump there, buddy. Wasn't really expecting that. I hadn't really processed, organ donation, right? And so there's a bar chart that tells us what we expect from friends and in terms of what we would give them, and this might be a part of this as well. So it's kind of a bar chart that goes out. There we go. on here, it begins to say, okay, I'm going to lend $500 if you're going through hard financial times. And then so 31% of your friends would do that. And 33% would think that their friends would do that, right? And then you have the infamous, Dana and a kidney thing. This might be the new status for you, for you to be able to say, hey, you're my friend if I can count on you for kidneys, right? Or at least one of them, right? If you will donate a kidney. But 28% of people say, I'll give a kidney to someone, and 22% of people think that they would someone would do that for them. Call in sick to be at work with you, fly across the country with no notice to be with you, forgive you if you lied to them. This is really significant. 80% of people won't forgive you if you lie to them. This is amazing to me. So more people will give kidneys than forgiveness. We're going to get into that next week and what that looks like. But evidently, evidently kidneys are in greater demand. I don't know if you've been on dabbled in the black market or not. That's a significant thing, right? Kidneys. Of course we have, but stand by if you're unfaithful to a spouse or a partner, bail you out of jail. You better not get put in jail. 85% of you're going to stay there, right? 85% of your friends would say, just camp out there, bro. I can't get you. 13% lie to a loved one or a friend to protect your secret. 7% invest money into a business. Now, they may give you a kidney, but they are not going to invest in your business, right? So this is this interesting thing as we begin to think about how close are we? And we begin to think, what would friends do and what would I do for friends, right? And what's the spectrum of that whole thing? And so when we begin to think about what it looks like, as we begin to think about this idea, we're constantly trying to figure out where are we at in the friendship thing? And do we have the amount of friends that we want? Are we kind of connected in a way that we hope that we would be? And ultimately, obviously, we always go back when we're trying to figure out what is a fake friend, we go back to Urban Dictionary, right? And so it says this in Urban Dictionary: someone who only acts as your friend when they require a service from you, which was kind of set up on the screen as well, right? Someone who only acts as your friend when they require a service from you. And so here's this reality. I think that we live in a sea of fake friends. And I'm passionate about us being able to move towards being able to have faithful friends and being able to identify and create these friendships that are deep. And I believe that this is something that we desperately want. And I think that the problem is this. That in our culture, that we haven't been given the tools that we need in order to create deep, abiding, and consistent relationships. We live in a throwaway culture, and oftentimes we treat our friendships in the same way. And so when we begin to think about this, what I want us to be able to do, what I want us to be able to ultimately push ourselves to, is to be able to say, what are the tools that I need? What are the things that I need? And so we're going to look at these shifts, and hopefully these can be able to help us to say, this is the kind of friendship I want. I was thinking about places where we see in media friendship, and I went back to my early childhood, and so this is going to be way past you, but there was a show on TV in the 80s, and the show was called Cheers, and the show was about a bar, and if you don't know Cheers, maybe you've heard of Woody Harrelson. He got his start there. If you don't know who Woody Harrelson is, he was Haymitch in Hunger Games. And if you don't know Hunger Games, ironically, you may understand Cheers better. So here's this, this thing. It says this. This is the overarching thing. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name. And I think that is embedded into our souls for us to want that. And yet I think that oftentimes we overlook this, and oftentimes we don't connect to this. And so what we're going to do is really we're going to connect to the Bible because it has something to say to you. And what we're going to do is we're going to let the Bible speak to us, because here's the desire of my heart for us, is that we as a group of people who Resonate Church, that we would be able to forge the kind of relationships that are difficult for our generation to forge. And here's the sneaky thing that I want for us. I want to eradicate loneliness in our context. The other thing that I want you to be is I want for you to allow the Bible to help create within you the capability of being one of the most popular people on campus. Not because you water down your belief system to say anything goes, but because you understand what it takes to be a friend. You understand what it takes for us to be able to forge these relationships and create these things. And so I want to look today at the Bible, and the Bible has a section in it that is called wisdom literature. And today we're going to look in Proverbs, and we're going to walk through this wisdom about what it means for us to pursue friendship. And so we're going to start with Proverbs 27:10. Proverbs 27:10 says this. It says, "Do not forsake your friend or a friend of your family." A friend is someone, and do not go to your relative's house when disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. Don't forsake your friend or a friend of your family, and do not go to your relative's house when disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. This is this idea that is being painted and is being captured, that in this context, what we begin to see is there's an incredible orientation towards the family. This is a traditional culture, and the family and how you orient towards other people in the relationships are specifically oriented towards being a family. And that's the main kind of connection. And so what happens here is this wisdom of the Bible is saying, here's the thing that you don't need to miss, that friendship is very important. In fact, it's so important that might need to be a primary place, not always running to your family, but running to developed friendships. And this is really significant because friendships are unique. Friendships are incredible in this because your family, there's kind of a bond there that is that's a necessity, that's expected. But you can choose your friendships. Friendship is a chosen kind of thing. And so it's unique in life. A friendship brings something to the table that no other relationship can bring. You see, it's different than any other thing. You have family relationships, you have romantic relationships, you have your neighbors and civic relationships. And what will happen is every single culture puts friendship on the back burner. It puts it into second place. Let's think about this. We live in an individualistic or secular kind of culture. And what an individualistic or a secular kind of culture does is this. It takes the romantic relationship and elevates it. And so romantic relationships are everywhere. Let's just think about our popular culture. Let's think about songs. How many songs do you know that are romantic-oriented songs, right? A lot. How many songs do you know that are about your friend, right? There's just not many friend songs, right? There's not many like, oh, I love that song. It's about my friend. It's like oriented towards that, unless it's like a weird friendship and it's still, anyway, so we won't get into that's complicated. But the thing is, let's look at magazines. You go to the stand, you go to the grocery store, and you see all of these magazines. And in those, there's never like, guess who's best friend with who, right? You never get that. It's like who's hooking up with who and who's together and what kind of baby they're going to have and all that kind of stuff, right? And so this is this whole point of this. We're pushed to this. In fact, the greatest or one of the greatest friendship stories is the Lord of the Rings, right? It's Tolkien wrote this whole friendship narrative about this whole idea of friendship. And at the romance for this got put into the appendix. Well, what happens is Hollywood says, hey, that doesn't work in our culture, so we're going to bring it out of the appendix with Aragorn and put this right in the middle of the movie. Why? Because we're oriented towards romance. You begin to think about a traditional culture. It's all about the family. It's all about the family values and all of a sudden about being connected to the family. You think about a socialist culture. A socialist culture is all about connected to your civic duty, connected kind of with your neighbors and the greater economy and stuff like that. But it always puts this in a secondary kind of place for this. And the thing is, each and every one of these relationships, these romance and family and civic, they'll push themselves on you. You won't be able to escape those kind of things, but friendship is unique. It's this. Friendship never presses itself into your life. It always waits for an invitation. It always waits to be invited. See, this is a unique kind of thing, and we need it desperately for this. when we begin to think about all of this, what we have to figure out is as we elevate friendship, as we say we desperately need friendship, here's the shift that we have to make. I hope I've painted this idea that we desperately need friendship, because here's what we need. If we need friendship, this is the shift that we need to make. We have to shift from incidental friendships to intentional friendships. From incidental friendships to intentional friendships, because here's what has happened. We have pushed friendship on the back burner for so long that most of the friendships that we have are because of incidental things and efforts that we've put towards our life, not because of intentional relationship or intentional efforts that we've put. And so most of us have relationships with friends, have friendships that are based upon incidental things and not intentional things. And so we have these incidental friendships that don't give us near the depth that we deeply desire. And so oftentimes we're in the 75%, we're in the 65%, because that's ultimately kind of how we've oriented our life and created these incidental things. And so here's what I want to do. I want to let the Bible speak to us and say, what do we need to do beyond just being incidental friends? What are some things that we need to look like? And it's two processes, 3 actions to help us to say, here is what it takes for us to develop the deep friendships on purpose, not on accident. On purpose, not on accident. And so as we begin to think about this, as we begin to think about what this looks like, first of all, we have to understand that friends are found, that we must find friends. It's a finding endeavor. And that needs to be helpfully oriented against creating friendships. And so let's go to the text and see this. In Proverbs 27:9, it says this: oil and perfume make the heart glad. Of course they do, right? Just you've thought that as well. So, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Oil and perfume make the heart go glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Here's the thing that you need to understand. If you go back, commentators say that in that time and place, what it looked like for people to cook and to make food, this idea of sweetness. We have sugar, and so we can just add it to whatever is bitter and to make it sweet. But in that day and age, they didn't have that, and so they would discover sweet things, not create sweet things. It's saying the same thing about, this is what happens, is the discovery of a friend and being able to connect in a way of earnest counsel or earnest advice is something that is absolutely discovered. And this might seem like, of course, Keith, but here's the thing that I think that we need to understand, that we have to be people that go deep into friendships. We have to be people that begin to not just have this kind of surface kind of stuff, but we need to go deep into friendship, and we need to have the discovery process. And this is incredibly key, because as we begin to think about what creates happiness in our life, what creates places in our life where we begin to come alive, we have a line graph that begins to talk about the number of friends that we have, or the depths of friends that we have, and kind of the answers to some of these questions. And we begin to look at that. It's a blue one. When we begin to think about that, it helps us to understand kind of what it looks like for us as we begin to press into the depths of these friendships and press into this. And so you'll see that, that we begin to answer these questions when we begin to have the kind of friends, close friends, that we begin to spend our time around. And so here's what we have to look at. We have to understand that friendship, the foundation of friendship, is finding a common ground. That friends are discovered, not created. And so what you have to do is begin to be the process of discovery. Ralph Waldo Emerson says it like this: friendship doesn't ask so much, do you love me, as much as it asks, do you see the same truth? Are you passionate about the same thing? Do you see the same truth? Are you passionate about the same thing? See, we've confused this. We've tried to figure out, do you love me? And not, how is it that we are connected? See, C.S. Lewis says it this way: the beginning of friendship starts with the moment of, what? You too? I thought I was the only one. This is friendship. This is not acquaintance. This is not, we just have fun together. This is true friendship. And your orientation towards the people around you should be a discovery process. It says it like this, that friendship is, that those who only want friends can never make any. Because the one condition for friendship is that you would want something besides friends. Did you get that? If someone were to ask you, do you see the same truth? And you were to say, I don't really care about that. I just want to be friends. Then ultimately no friendship can arise. And so when we begin to think about all of this, we have to say, how is it that we begin to discover the sweetness of a friendship? How is it that we begin to orient our view towards this? I'm not going to try to just create friends. I'm going to discover this, and we'll get back into how we do this at the very end. But it first takes finding. The second thing, you can't just forge friends. You have to find them first, but you can't just find them and just leave it. You have to forge. And I'm not saying forage like through the forest. I'm saying that forge like you hammer out something, you create something. Again, from incidental to intentional. And so what does it look like for us? And so there's three actions that you have to do to create friends, to forge this. You found them, and so what now? You found there's a commonality. We have a common ground. So what do I do now? See, this is where oftentimes this doesn't work. Oftentimes, we have seasonal friends. I mean, you have friends that you're no longer friends with. Why? Because you haven't been able to have these specific actions. And how do you connect on something on a deeper level that doesn't just say, we were just in this season, we just had this kind of thing in common, but that was it. You have to create something deeper than that. And so in Proverbs 17:17, it gives us this idea of constancy. So this constancy is this first idea that friends are available. Friends are available. The first action, the first shift from incidental to intentional is your availability to the people in your life. Proverbs 17:17 says this, a friend loves at all time, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. Here's the thing. We begin to think about what friendships are and what friendship isn't, what fake and faithful is. One of the first things that you have to do to move from incidental friendship to intentional friendship is be a person who has availability. It says this, a friend loves at all time. A brother is born at a time of adversity. So there's many people that walk in the great times of your life with you, in the easy times of your life with you. Who walks with you in the difficult times? And conversely, you walk with people. Do you walk with them in the hard times? Are you available to them? See, most people want to know you because you're useful to them. And before we get all judgmental on this, like most of the people that your friendships with your friends are, it's kind of because they're useful. Maybe they're useful for a good time or get things done or to meet other people, stuff like that. But that's not true friendship. Friends say, I'm going to sacrifice to be with you wherever you're at. I will be there even when it costs me something. See, people who only know you when you're useful, it's going to take a lot of energy when life collapses on you, when stuff goes dark for you. And they'll say, hey, call me if you need anything, but a friend shows up. The first thing is availability. You're not a friend if you're not available to the people around you. You're not a friend if you're not there in proximity around their life, if you don't have an opportunity to give to them your greatest asset, which is your time. So this is a key thing as you begin to think about this. And so if you're to say, what do I do about this? I would say take the 1% challenge. See, what's the 1% challenge? It's this, 1% of your day, give it to your friends. 1% of your week, give it to your friends. 1% of your week. What would that look like? About 90 minutes. How is it that you begin to think about, how do I spend 90 minutes a week? And this is not like, hey, we're going to go see a movie, and the movie's 2 hours, and so I'm going to be like connected with them and then some, right? That's not how it works. How are you connecting with them really? How are you doing really? Answering those questions, the authentic things, to have conversation, to have things that are talking about what means something to you. How do you give that as a gift to the friends around you? So incidental says, I'll give whatever I have, whatever doesn't cost me that much. Intentional friendship says this, that I am going to ultimately give you, I'm going to prioritize. 1%, this is what I'm going to do for us to stay connected. This is huge for us. What would you do? Could you give 90 hours? Sorry, that's a lot. That's too much. 90 minutes. It's like a kidney, right? You know, it's the equivalent, the time equivalent of a kidney. So 1, constancy. Number 2, compassion. Compassion. Friends are emotionally connected. And I want to press this. Here's the scripture. It says this. I love this. It's Proverbs 27:14. It says this. If anyone loudly blesses their neighbor early in the morning, it will be taken as a curse. I think that's awesome. If anyone loudly hey, I'm so glad, wake up, it's a great day, curse you. You know, this is the thing. You might be extremely excited about your life and just ready to encourage, you're going to do great on your test today. I was sleeping for that test, shut up, you know. This is this idea, I don't know if you've ever had these people in your life. These are people, if you've ever had somebody who's so wrapped up in your world that they're oblivious. They're so wrapped up in their world that they're oblivious to your world. About 14 months ago, I was riding my bike on the Chipman Trail and riding out to Troy, and it was a great day. I mean, it was a spring day, and I was just trucking along, and I came close to Troy that kind of gets higher in elevation. Then I came to this point kind of at the very end of the trail where there's a shade canopy that's over the trail, and I was just going on my bike, just pedaling away, and all of a sudden I realized that the entire trail was covered with ice. I mean, it was just completely, it had not melted, and so there was some snow around there, but the trail was just a sheet of ice and like ice water, right? And so I was on, my little road bike, and so I can't stop on it or I flip, and so I just decided, I don't know why I thought this was, I'm just gonna hold on tight and keep going forward and see if I could ride through it. And it's like 100 yards, right? Right, like I'm going to ride through on the, a 1-inch tire through this. And so immediately, right, I get in 2 foot in, it's completely yard sale. My bike goes flying. I fall over on my back, and it's not flat. It's not like an ice rink. It's not like a Zamboni went over it, right? It is all the stuff, and I'm just, going and hitting all these bumps. And I slide for 20 yards, right? I'm going about 18 miles an hour, and I slide on this, and I'm just yelling, and, there's no one over there, at least as far as I know. And so then I'm just laying, trying to figure out, what did I break? How many ribs do I have? And how, and I forgot, and I was like, I might have broken one because I can't remember, But this is just like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden I'm laying there, and this guy walks past me, right? Just walks past me on this trail. No eye contact, no words. He's just heading somewhere. And I'm just like, what are you doing, man? I've just had an epic crash. At least give me some credit for entertaining you, right? This is an amazing thing. And, I'm sitting there and I just get so angry, right? Why don't you care, right? You're so wrapped up in your little hike, and I almost wanted to shout out, yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay back over here, I can just walk home the 30 miles, but it's those people who are so wrapped up in their world, and I don't know if you've been around those kind of people, right? I don't know if you've been around people that they're connected to themselves and nothing more. And so in friendship, here's the thing, it is not like that. You can't be wrapped up in your life and ignore and be oblivious to other people's lives and be true friends. Here's what a friend gives. A friend gives emotional connectedness. A friend is there, not just physically, it's not just the availability thing, but they're there with you. See, there's too many friends that I feel like that they pass by lives and they give commentary on your life, but they don't sit with you in your issues. They don't celebrate. Their heart isn't celebrating with you. Their heart isn't crying with you. They're just kind of outside of this circle, kind of looking in. And that is not deep friendship. Here's what we give to each. This is the amazing gift of friendship, is being there in the moments of our life with someone. And for us, when we begin to think about this, there's a saying, I've said it a ton, but it doesn't matter what you know until they know that you care. And so you can give like advice to their life, but it doesn't matter until you're there hurting with them, until you're weeping with them, until their pain is your pain. This is friendship, and this is something we are not very good at because it's hurtful, and we don't know how to deal with painful relationships. We don't know how to enact this whole thing, and we don't know how to be available to this. We haven't been taught this because it's not something you can type into a screen. It's something you have to experience face to face and see the emotion. See, the problem is, if you've ever done any kind of communication study, is the vast majority of the communication that we have between each other is nonverbal. It also is not typed. It's not even the words that we choose. The most communication that we have, especially at the soul level, is our nonverbal. You have to be there with each other. Let me give you a graphic. This is kind of a progression of our intimacy and communication. And this is kind of what it looks like from all the way from Twitter to talking. You see, you can go all the way and you have Twitter and then Facebook status, Facebook message, email, text, IM, letter, phone, video chat, talking. I need us to understand that we can't just have this idea of just thinking that we can connect through text and social media, and that's really friendship. That is incidental friendship. That's not intentional friendship. You have missed a huge aspect if you think that somehow you're there for people. It has to be compassion and an emotional connection. You see, here's the thing. We have to connect on a level where you can't sing songs when their heart is heavy. And here's how you know if you have a friend. They can't go about singing songs when you're heavy-hearted. They can't go about their job when you're collapsing. See, a friend is committed to your emotional flourishing because they cannot flourish without you flourishing as well. This is where we miss it, guys. And some of you might in this moment say, I can't, that's completely foreign to me. That's a level of friendship that I've never engaged in. And I want to say that's what it takes. I think that deep in your heart, you have a longing. 75% of people are not satisfied. Why? Because they're not being with other people in their hurt, being with other people in their celebration, being sensitive to what is going on in the hearts of people around them. This is what it takes for us to have the relationships and the friendships that we want. You have to go into their world. The third action that you have to take is candor. Friends, the reality is, tell the truth. Friends, tell the truth. Let's look at this. In Proverbs 27, 5 and 6, it says this: better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. It could be, what are the wounds of a friend? It could be said like this: friends stab you in the front, fake friends stab you in the back. What does that look like? Because here's the thing, with like, hey, how about just no stabbing, right? You know, as long as they're taking out the kidney and all, how about we just don't stab? But here's the problem. That's not a part of it. There's this idea of this hidden love. So it's better an open rebuke than hidden love. And see, what happens oftentimes is we're the kind of friends that say, I don't really want to tell you the hard thing. I don't really want to tell you what you don't want to hear. And really, I don't really want to tell you what needs to be said. And if you're that, let me tell you, you are not a friend. Hidden love, this is the person who thinks that they are loving by hiding the truth. You may say, I love them too much to confront them. I love them too much to tell them the truth. But here's what happened. Those two verses, they juxtapose each other. They kind of connect to each other. that hidden love is the same thing as an enemy that multiplies kisses. So the hiding the love is paralleled with being an enemy in verse 6. It's just as bad as Judas betraying Jesus with a kiss. Because if you say, I love them too much to tell them the truth, what you're really saying is, I love myself too much to have to go through that. You aren't being a friend. In another place in Proverbs, it says this: those who flatter their neighbors are spreading nets for their feet. And by the spreading net, this is a trap. So we all have blind spots. Here's why you need to be stabbed. We all have blind spots. With love and sensitivity, here's the thing: if you fail to tell someone about a blind spot, about an issue, if you fail to confront them with love, you're not a friend. Here's what you're doing. Instead of telling your friend what is wrong with them so they can get an accurate view of themselves, their strengths, their weaknesses, what you're doing if you don't do that, you are setting them up for a disastrous life, as much as you would be putting their foot into a trap. Because here's the thing, we all think that we're self-made people, right? It's not true. When you're a kid, you're made out of the image of your family. Your family was the most influential thing, and you ultimately bear the marks of being oriented to your family. As you got up, here's the thing, your friends bear the mark upon you and who you are. So in terms of what this looks like, we have to be people who love people enough to tell them the truth, to understand it's crucial for us. So this is why it's hard to be a friend. This is why it's painful to be a friend, because you have to be compassionate enough to bear their pain with them, and you have to have candor to an ability that you would create the pain that you will then have to bear. Do you get that? I hope that you get that. I hope that you're living in that, that there's wisdom that is descending upon you right now, because this generation doesn't get that. We kind of say, oh, I'm going to bounce out, and that's just a seasonal friend whenever it gets difficult. But be an intentional friend. Lean into them when truth needs to be said, and also stay there as they process that in painful ways. This is the hope. This is what you have to have. You have to have this balance between being compassionate and being candid. And to be a friend is in constant pain. Can you be a friend? Do you still want to be a friend? Here's the thing, you can keep yourself from pain, but you will also keep yourself from the richest relationship the world has to offer. It's deep and abiding friendships with people. It's your choice. Deep and abiding, ultimately joyful, always is accompanied by strife and pain, because you have to balance these things. If you don't balance these well, what you're doing is manipulating people. If you are someone who is always saying, hey, it's great, I don't really want to talk to you about the difficult thing, you're just manipulating them. You're not being helpful to that relationship. To always be over here and to give your 2 cents on their life and always be candid and have candor and be judgmental, but never be with them in the pain, it's easy. It's just not true friendship. And it's still emotional manipulation. You have to have both of these put together. And so, in this, stop exploiting your friends by being one or the other. If you're both, it creates depth in your friendship. We could say it like this: a friend always lets you in and never lets you down. A friend always lets you in and never lets you down. And you say, Keith, you know what? I have been around friends and they have let me down. And I'd say that's true. We're going to talk about that next week. What do you do in conflict within friendships? What do you do when you're let down? Does the relationship get stronger or is it broken off? But ultimately, we ask ourselves, what does it take for us to live in these relationships? And the book of Proverbs gives us a rich idea of what it takes for us to move from incidental to intentional. How do we do that? You need to know this. And here's what it says in chapter 18, verse 24. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. Your fake friends will ruin you. But here's the thing. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And commentators say that this is one of these moments in Scripture that's pointing us ahead. It's pointing us to the conclusion of the story. It's pointing us to Jesus. He is the person who sticks closer than a brother. So your fake friends will cause your ruin. Here's what you need to know. You need to understand the love of Jesus. When you understand the friendship of Jesus, the greatest friend that has ever been given to us, then the way that you make friends will be radically different. You say, why, Keith? How has Jesus affected my friends? It's because of this. When you understand that your heavenly Father loved you enough to send his Son to this earth, to live out his life in perfection, and ultimately then that perfect life, he took all of your sin and he went and he sacrificed himself on a Roman cross for you to redeem you to your heavenly Father. Your sin created a distance. He came to close the gap. The kind of love that it took for him to do that is the love that you need to understand. There's one who sticks closer than a brother, right? What does that mean? How are you motivated to love your friends this kind of way? How are you motivated to give them the kind of time, to give them the kind of emotional energy, to give them the kind of proximity to your life, transparency, to be there when it hurts? Just because you might hope that they would do that for you. We all know, we've all been let down by friends. We cannot say, just because I do this with someone, it means that there's going to be some kind of reciprocity. They're going to do it back to me as well, right? No, you do that whether or not they do that for you. Why? It's because of Jesus. And if you become the kind of friend that would do that and say, you don't have to pay me back, you are being a friend that will ultimately never be lonely. You will have all the friends your heart desires if you begin to live towards other people as Jesus has lived towards you. This is the great and amazing thing about what it means for us to be followers of Christ. Because here's the thing. You say, who around here can I be friends with? I'm trying to find commonalities. Let me tell you one. People that follow Jesus, and if that's the core of their heart, and if that's the core of your heart, then you have a common ground. And in this place, you can find the friends of your life. And what is a more powerful thing to say? We would never hang out. Our personality, our chemistry is not the same. We don't have the same history. But it's because of Christ that has brought us together that I can find friends. And I want to eradicate loneliness because there's a common ground for us to stand on. If you're a follower of Christ, I hope that you find common ground. And don't say, hey, you're not like me. Some of my best friendships were the ones that I never saw coming. Some of the most significant relationships in my life, the relationships that I was like, I didn't realize that we were going to be this kind of friends. But we found something that was deeply in common, and we began to forge that relationship together because of Christ. Everything else in my life has been seasonal, except for my relationships that have been founded on Christ. The interesting thing is, even research tells us this. A UCLA study said two things. One of the most significant things that you can do is join a club. More important than that, to join a church. Independent research, UCLA, not a Christian thing, but it's saying here's this thing. Our hearts are drawn together by something significant. And so here's what I want to ask you. Are you reaching towards people? Are you incidental friends with people? Or are you intentional friends with people? Are you moving towards being known, letting people in? Are you putting up walls? Are you being there for people? Or are you giving excuses? What's it going to look like for you? This is a hope for us as we go forward. Begin to process, what kind of a friend am I? Am I valuing friendship? What's the status of my friendships? What's my vision for my friendships? What do I want to see happen? And ultimately, how does Christ motivate all of that to have the kind of relationships you deeply, deeply desire? Let me pray for us. God, I ask that you would ultimately give us the kind of clarity that would allow us to have the relationships that we deeply desire, Lord. Help us to see where we've been friends. Help us to see where we've been fake. Help us to see what it looks like for us to ultimately be people that are not incidental, but people that are intentional. So God, today I ask that you would help people to really process this with clarity, that they would take and they would understand how is it that they can take this scripture and take this wisdom and for it to be significant in their lives. God, today, clarify what it means for us to not live in incidental friendship, but to live in intentional friendship and to go from fake to faithful. We ask all this in your holy name. Amen.